Om. 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 Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om. Offering my humble pranams at the lotus feet of our most merciful Sai, who in his own way reminds us that if we have the firm conviction that he is the one doing everything, stringing a garland, all we need is to have a thread and the stringing automatically happens. And this satsang is continuing in that particular manner, where sometimes we do not know who the speaker is, which has happened before, but the uncertainty goes all the way such that until 11 a.m. of today Singapore time, I did not have the profile of the speaker, but I knew there is going to be a speaker. And
Swami brings.
Exactly.
Swami
So I am coming to that. So Swami has his own way of bringing people to address us, and whatever they have to speak is what he wills that we should listen. And Haryana is here. Haryana has always been supportive to connect the alumni fraternity to this satsang series. We started off with many of his batchmates. We have gone through various decades of alumni, and we have yet another alumni today who has had this journey beginning from the school in Ooty, uh, going on to study further in Brindavan, and subsequently doing his masters also in Prasanthi, moving on further to do his doctorate overseas in the US, and coming back and being blessed to serve in Swami's institution, which I guess is one of the biggest form of blessings, and also sadhana one has to apply and inspire the further batches that 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 create what I would call soldiers of Sai, or messengers of Sai. And we are fortunate to have this brother here today with us, all the way from Canada. It's early hours for him, but he had one request: can I speak on Swami um, before the start of my busy day, which can happen, and I want no interruption. And we are blessed to have a faculty from Prasanthi, currently based in Canada, Dr. Sai Sathish Ramamurthy, speaking to us. And I would request Haryana to do what I would call Nammat Payan kind of introduction. So this is the formal one. I've done
Oh
that.
my God.
So let's get away from that, and I would like to have this
You have
Nammat
put
Payan
me.
kind of introduction. Yeah, over to you, Haryana.
Yeah. Formally, yes, Sai Sathish, Dr. Sai Sathish, and he gets lots of people in research. That's all a formal thing. But to my heart, he is I always take him like my son. More important, very sweet, sweetest boy. And is such a blessed person. Yes, he has, in fact, in the divine presence, he has given his most emotional talk with his experience, which I still remember. And more than the person who has absolutely, like Swami has taught all the students that, they always feel they are just an instrument of Swami. And Satish is truly, truly one among them, a very knowledgeable person. We will read also. And today, I'm so happy that we are having. And we called him yesterday, and he immediately agreed that, uncle, to talk about some what formalities and like this type only are fit to talk for Satsangh. And Swami really needs such people. Incidentally, we all somehow get somebody, but it is actually Swami decided. Till day first day, I never thought. Every day, I think, but not thought about Satsang. Yesterday, suddenly I thought about the theme Swami has put that thought. So, Sai Sathish, this is our Singapore family, one of the loveliest family. I have been to address, and may Swami speak to you, and that all of us take that Amrit in our heart and then proceed with our lives. Jai Sai Ram.
Sairam Anna, I missed out something. I went very informal in a supposedly formal introduction. I do have to add one point that highlights silent work that gets done in Swami's institution. Uh, Dr. Sai Sathish um, led the STAR lab in Swami's University to develop the first COVID antigen and antibody kit by an academic institution in India. And that has also been part of his journey where he's transitioned from chemistry to the pharma industry right now. Lots of silent work gets done in Swami's institution. I would call them soldiers with humility and whose work rings so many inspiring stories all around. And we have one such inspiring person here with us. And over to you, Brother Satish, to have Swami speak through you. Sairam.
Sairam, um, offering my most humble obeisance at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan. Um, Dear brothers and sisters of the Sai family, let me start by thanking Brother Venkat and Hari Uncle for the sweet words of introduction. It's a pleasure and an honor to always speak about Bhagwan, and to do that in the midst of his devotees is so very enriching, because it gives us the opportunity to think of him and to live those moments, go back in time, whether it is the Treta Yuga or Dwapar Yuga or Kali Yuga with our beloved Swami, and enrich our lives. So even as we start this satsang, I would like to say that at any point in time, any of you have anything to ask, any inputs to give, though I understand we have a formal structure here, please feel free to stop me, ask anything that you have in mind. And if I have the answer, I can let you know. If I don't, we will pray to Swami for guidance. So that's what I would say right at the beginning of this satsang. And also allow me to do certain exercises, or more of sitting back relaxed. Let's take this opportunity to just close our eyes. And for those of us who have seen Bhagwan in person, in Parthi, we can close our eyes and be in that moment where we are seated in the Sai Kulwant Hall and we are waiting for the darshan music to start, or in the later years, the Vedam to start, or the Vedam is ongoing. And for some of us who might have not seen Swami in person, but have seen him in videos, let's again close our eyes and start capturing those moments and see us part of that gathering in Parthi, all of us looking towards the Purnachandra. And the music starts. Swami is gliding by. He's coming for darshan through the ladies' side, then to the gents' side. And wherever we are seated, or we visualize ourselves to be seated, we see that beautiful smile on Swami's face as he is approaching us. And as he is walking, giving his beautiful darshan to each and every one seated there, and we are filled with a joy, let us see ourselves back in our homes, seated at the altar, and Swami just walks in from there straight into our homes. He comes straight in, he comes down and sits on the chair in our altar that we have had for Swami. And as Swami sits there, he gently bends down and pats our cheek. And Swami begins a conversation. He tells us that Bangaru, whatever happens is for your good only. In fact, Swami pats to his own chest and he says, whatever happens is for our good only, our good. And he pats his own chest. And as he does that, we hold on to Swami's feet tightly and we tell that to ourselves, that whatever happens is for my good, is for my good. And even as we essence that, Swami also tells us that Bangaru, always remember that anything that comes, tell yourself, this too shall pass. If it is a sad moment, a difficult moment, a turbulent moment that anyone could be in, this too shall pass. If it's a happy moment, very exuberant, this too shall pass. Swami says it's all passing clouds. Don't worry. This too shall pass. And even as we continue pressing Swami's feet, we essence that nothing other than Swami is permanent. Everything shall pass. And we hold on tightly to Swami's feet. And then Swami looks down deep into our eyes. He smiles and says, I am in you, with you, above you, below you, around you. And as Swami looks deeply into our eyes and says this, we are pulsating with that feeling from top to toe that yes, Swami is in me, with me, below me, above me, around me. Swami is always with me, and we hold on tightly to his feet. Swami smiles so beautifully at us. We smile back at Swami. And keeping those thoughts, that feeling that is going through our body, even as we hold on tightly to Swami's feet, that he is always with us and he is the focus of our lives. I request you to open your eyes and we will continue through this satsang. Even as we go through whatever each one of us have experienced, whether we call it visualization or being in Swami's presence, allow me to share with you a few of the anecdotes or experiences, and let us explore together what is the meaning behind each of these. Apparently, long time ago in Tirupati, when they had to store these laddus, all of us know that Tirupati laddus are everybody's favorite, and everybody loves to savor them. And when it is told as Tirupati laddu, yes, no doubt we think about Lord Venkateshwara, but the taste of the laddu is all the more inviting. And so those days when they didn't have this refrigeration technology to store these laddus, they had a very unique way of apparently ensuring that all the laddus are very safe. And this is something that I've heard, but whether it is true or not, the significance behind it is what I want each of us to savor. So they used to have this heap of laddus, a mountain of laddus in the center of a huge hall. And a few meters beyond that mountain of laddus, they would have a circle of huge bags of sugar. So when the ants come, they come and they meet first with the circle of sugar. And they are so very happy in savoring that sugar cubes. They collect that and go back. They come, they savor it, they collect that and go back. That none of the ants cross that circle of sugar and get to the mountain of laddus that is beyond. They don't even know that the real sweetness is just a few meters away. They come all the way, they pick the sugar and they go back. So if I apply that to my life, many times with what Swami has said and Swami has done, I'm so busy in coming and collecting the sugar part of it that I miss the laddu that is there, actually what Swami is waiting to give us or waiting to give me. So I just request each of us to, anything that we discuss, whether it is part of the satsang or beyond the satsang, anything in our day-to-day life, if we can go beyond that sugar and essence the laddu, because it's just a few meters away, it is within our grasp. We just need to know that Swami, please guide us at every step. Let us, help me to see beyond what I take it as it is, for there is a lot more of hidden meaning and a lot more of bliss to come if we can just go a little deep. And as we have heard even stories, there's been a story of a woodcutter who had 3 sons, and he was telling each of these sons, go beyond into the woods, go beyond. The first one goes beyond the woods and he finds a copper mine. The second one goes further ahead because he takes the father's words a little more serious. He finds a silver mine. And the third one goes a little more beyond and he gets a gold mine. So it's about everything in life that we engage in. Can we go a little deeper? Can we go a little more beyond what we see with our physical senses to beyond that? Because when we perceive that, we will see the Swami seated there. The mountain of laddu is nothing but Swami. And what he has been telling across is what we need to truly savor and understand. So even as we go through these different points in the satsang, there is something that I have said, but what Swami would have really had is that mountain of laddu. So please look at it from that perspective and savor that. So we know of these stories about Krishna and Arjuna they've gone for many walks, I think, together. So many stories have come from those walks. So one such story has been about this famous story that Krishna points to a bird on a tree and he tells it that it's initially a dove, and Arjuna says, yes, my lord, it's a dove. A few more steps and Krishna says, no, 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 it's not a dove. It's actually a peacock. And immediately Arjuna says, yes, my lord, it's a peacock. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't even bat an eyelid. He's on the go, yes, my lord. And then few more steps and again, Lord Krishna says, actually, it's not a peacock, it's a crow. So he transitions from something that's beautiful to something that what we perceive with the senses as completely ugly. And again, once again, Arjuna is, yes, my lord, it's a crow. And then now Lord Krishna gets worried. He says, Arjuna, it's just a few days into the battle. We are going to the great battle of Kurukshetra. You are not able to identify what is a dove, what is a peacock, what is a crow. If you're not able to identify among these birds, how will you identify who is a friend and who is a foe? And you may start sending direct arrows in the wrong direction. Right? This is what Lord Krishna gets worried with the implicit obedience of Arjuna. And then Arjuna says, my lord, I believe your word more than my sight. And then what follows is rest of Mahabharata or rest of Kurukshetra. Because I believe your word more than my sight takes it to a different level. Because when Swami says, Divyatma Swarupalara or Prematma Swarupalara, that moment, I think we should say, Swami, I believe your word more than my sight. I believe your word more than my sight, because what happens then is we stop saying we are human beings having a spiritual experience and we start saying we are spiritual beings having a human experience. That flip in consciousness will happen. That flip is what is about saying, Lord, I believe in your words more than in my sight. Because what we keep seeing again and again and again in our daily life will only tell us, I am a human being, I am struggling, I am trying to have a spiritual experience. That small ego starts showing up. Flip it and say, Swami, you have said Divyatma Swarupalara. You have said Prematma Swarupalara. And since you have said that, I believe in your word more than in my sight. And no longer will the small I speak. It will become the capital I. And then the flip happens, that I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And when I say that with that confidence, I am a spiritual being having a human experience, everything else melts away. Life becomes one joyous sojourn, experiencing Swami every moment. So it's about going a little beyond that circle of sugar and accessing that mountain of laddus. It is just waiting there. And that mountain of laddu has been telling us again and again and again, you are that divine. You are verily, said, I am divine, so are you. That's what Swami has been telling each of us. And it's about going back and savoring that, letting go of the sugar. And Swami, help me to go that few meters beyond that sugar and savor your sweetness. Know that I am that whom I am praying to. And this actually gets us to that part of what we heard Swami, whether we call it visualization or whether we call it Swami telling us truly from within. He has told us so many times, whatever happens is good for me, good for me, good for me. Swami would point to himself. I remember so fondly in so many discourses, and he would Lord coming and saying so very strongly, whatever happens is good for me, good for me. I believe in your word more than my sight. And let me tell an incident connected with Swami about whatever happens is good for me. I think Swami had taken all these boys along with him to Chennai, and it was part of the Atirudra Mahayajnam at that point in time. And many of these boys were to give talks in the evenings. So to one of the boys, one of the days, Swami asked, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Swami, I'm talking about Guru." Swami said, "What is Guru?" Swami, Gunatita Rupavarjita. It's beyond form and beyond attributes and all of that. Slowly the discussion went from Guru to surrender. And as the discussion went from Guru to surrender, Swami asked this boy, "Do you know how to drive a car?" He said, "Yes, Swami." Because initially Swami had asked about what is surrender and so on. So many answers come. Swami was waiting for the right answer, and then Swami himself explained. He says, okay, so if you know how to drive a car, he was talking about a stick shift, gear one. So he asked, "How do you go about driving?" "Swami, I move from first gear to second gear. And then when I have to go fast, I keep moving from one gear to another. Then what happens if you have to go back?" "Swami, I put the reverse gear." Then Swami asked, "What do you do when you have to go from one gear to another gear?" And then the boy says, "Swami, we put the clutch and then we change the gear." And then comes the beautiful laddu, right? Swami says, in life, when you go from one gear to another gear, maybe a very positive experience, or it may be a negative experience, whatever our mind calls it, because there is nothing positive, nothing negative. It's all prasadam from Swami. We have to just accept it and take that. So that part, he says, when you move, when our mind is seeing that as a positive or negative, when you move from one gear to another gear, you apply the clutch. That clutch is, whatever happens is good for me. Whatever happens is good for me. And Swami uses that clutch example to drive home that whatever comes in life is Swami's prasadam. So if we are able to, "Swami, your word is what I go with and not my side," then we hold on to that clutch. We hold on, not just in terms of making the transition, but truly hold on to Swami and what he has said. Then we accept whatever happens is good for me. And then whatever happens is good for me is nothing but sharanagati, is nothing but surrender, is nothing but extending it to the framework of, I am a spiritual being having a human experience. This is just, I've come to have a human experience at this point in time. I'm having this experience, but I am established in that fundamental thing that there is no difference between Swami and me. I just have to hold on to Swami and feel that Swami within, connect to that Swami within, and move along. And how, if we look at the aspect of surrender, it comes with that continuous focus. The central focus always has to be Bhagwan, because if Swami is in focus, everything else goes out of focus. If something else comes into focus, then Swami goes out of focus. So it is very, very important that we stay focused on Swami. And when we stay focused on Swami, whatever happens is good for me. That first part of the laddu we would have savored in. And what are the stories for that from our mythology that we have in this context? I just take you to this scenario where Ashwatthama, he has, in a wrong way, he has killed the Upapandavas, he's escaping, and Arjuna is after him with all the Pandavas, rest of the Pandavas coming along with him. And when they are able to confront him, he, in defense or to protect himself, he discharges the Brahmastra. As a countermeasure, Arjuna also sends across another Brahmastra. So at that point in time, each of them, of course, whether it's Lord Krishna or Sage Vyasa who comes to stop that from both of these missiles meeting one another, one is asked to take back, in fact, both of them are asked to take back, but while Arjuna is able to get that Brahmastra back, he's able to pull back that missile. Because Ashwatthama has done a mistake, he loses the sanctity and he's no longer able to pull it back. Now he has to discharge that weapon. Once it's released, it has to meet a target. And since he's not able to pull it back, he can only redirect it. And then that time also what he does, he sends that missile to the fetus that is growing in the womb of Uttara. And he wants the last of the Pandava hair to be destroyed. At that point in time, Pandavas cannot do anything. They cannot, because what can they do, right? Already the weapon is discharged. They can only pray to Lord Krishna. It's complete surrender, nothing else. The whole battle has been to ensure that dharma goes on. And now the only surviving hair of the Pandava clan is also going to be destroyed, right? So at that time, the Brahmastra is directed at the fetus growing in the womb of Uttara. And that very moment when they completely surrender to the Lord, the fetus in the womb of Uttara suddenly sees that there is something come towards it, and as that, basically it's the arrow that is coming towards it or the missile coming towards it. Instantly in that womb, a beautiful blue-colored form appears with a wheel. It shatters that arrow into 1,000 pieces and then vanishes. And this fetus growing in the womb of Uttara is just looking at that form. It sees that form. All of this is there in Bhagavad Vahini, by the way. And then written, of course, so beautifully by Swami, because he is the one who came there and saved the child, and all of that. Swami recounting all of things that he had done in Dwapara. So the child from that moment onwards is just asking one question: who is that beautiful form? Who is that beautiful form that appeared there with the wheel, and it could just shatter that arrow and then vanish? If that form is having a wheel, why not me, kind of things, all those follow. But then the mind of that fetus is just focused on that blue form. So when the child is born into, or the fetus is born as a child in this world, it has only one question. It stares at every face and in a questioning way. And that's why the name Parikshit comes, one who examines, one who does the pariksha of everybody, just examining the face. Is this the beautiful form that I saw back when I was a fetus? And when it doesn't see that resemblance, it examines and then it looks away. And this continued to happen. And that's why the name of Parikshit already came onto the child. And subsequently, when Lord Krishna comes to Dwaraka, Lord Krishna comes from Dwaraka to Hastinapur. He comes and then he picks this baby up, and the moment the baby sees into the eyes of Lord Krishna, it knows that this is the form that it's been searching. So now it doesn't want to let go. So we held on to the feet of Swami. So the child also caught on to Krishna. Now Krishna is having a problem. How to let go of the child? So he tells these, initially he tries to give the child to another of the Pandavas. The child is not letting go. So he tries to distract the child with some toys. The child is not letting go. He somehow puts the child down with the toys. He runs to hiding behind a pillar. The child is pushing all the toys aside, pushing everybody aside, going straight to where Krishna is, and finding Krishna holding on to his feet and going on crying till Lord Krishna picks the child up. If that intensity, if we can have in life, that come what may, because Swami also keeps saying this, or our Bhaja Govindam also says all of this, the same thing, right? As we go through life, first Swami, like, okay, I ask for my toys. Then after my toys, Swami helped me through my exam. Then after exam and this thing, Swami, I should get good degree. Then after a good degree, a good job. Then I should settle down with the family. Then after settling down with the family, I should grow in prosperity and things of. So more and more, the focus goes from one smaller toy to one bigger toy to another bigger toy. We are forgetting that there is the mountain of laddus that is there, right? I'm more interested in the sugar, and I keep collecting one bigger cube of sugar than the other one, the next, the bigger one, the another bigger. Oh, I'm very, very happy with all of this. And I forget that there is that mountain of laddus a few feet away. I forget that there is our Lord Sai. I forget that there is our Lord Krishna. Just the Lord tests, but I'm so caught up with that I forget him. I don't push aside all of those toys or other things and just go and say, Swami, please, I just want to hold on to you. I don't want anything else. As long as my focus is on you, everything else is out of focus. You are the central point. You are the focus of my life. You are the fulcrum of my life. I surrender completely to you. And when we stay in that sense of complete surrender, whatever happens is good for me. And then that acceptance, life continues to be a beautiful melody. So even as this happens, and it's finally that association that makes everything in life. What is our value? Why is, for example, now we are having the satsang? Because we are calling ourselves a Sai devotee or a Sai student, Sai alumni and things. So the value of that devotee or that student or that alumnus, whatever we call it, is because of the Sai in front of it. So we look at, Swami has told this so many times. He says, the earth is zero, the sun is zero, the moon is zero, everything is zero. They get value because when they put God in front of it, then the value comes. So it's all about that one. He says, if after one the zeros come, the value increases. If the zero comes before one, then only the one remains. There is no value for that zero. So it's about that shift in thought of taking that zero before. I am before Swami, like it's the small I coming to fore, pushing that aside and say it's the capital I always. It is the Swami that I always focus on. It is him who is, he is the doer, he is the enjoyer, he is the bhokta, or what, however we have to call that experience. Everything first Swami and then the zero, then the value increases. And that's what happens to us. If we value that Swami in us, then the Sai devotee gains in value. Our value, I'm not talking in terms of the materialistic value, in terms of our joy, our bliss, what we experience of him within. And another story for this. Apparently, there were 3 trees that were growing in a forest. The first one wanted to have the greatest treasure in the world. That's what the feeling of that tree was. The second tree wanted to be the greatest ship in the world, or basically a vehicle, the greatest vehicle. And the third one always wanted to point to God. These were the three feelings of the three trees that were growing in one section of the forest. One day the woodcutter came, he felled all the three trees. The first one became a box. It was made into a box. It was stashed away in a stable. And it was used to collect all dirt, this, that. But the feeling in that tree, once upon a time, a tree which became a box, was still I should hold, not from the small I point of view, but still holding on to the capital I point of view, that I should have that opportunity to hold the greatest treasure in the world, remained with that. It continued to savor that and focus on that. The second tree was made into a small boat, and it was used to ferry people, the fishermen folk, and so on. And the third became, it was made into a kind of a signpost that was kept on the road. But all the three trees now that had become a box, a small boat, a signpost, they still had their focus, their inner thing of wanting to contain the greatest treasure, wanting to be the greatest vessel, and wanting to always point to God. That feeling was always in them. They were focused. Years went by, and one day, when baby Jesus was born in a manger, they needed a box to hold the child. So they cleaned up this box and put all of this straw and other things, made it a bit neat, and then placed the child in that box. And that box attained instantly what it needed. Right? It contained the greatest treasure in the world. What more? Son of God is placed in that. Little further down, when Jesus grew up and he stepped on to this boat that was having all this fisherman community, though at that point in time, the small boat attained its fulfillment. It now became the greatest vessel in the world because it was now ferrying across the Son of God. And years later, when Jesus was being taken to crucified, the signpost on the road was pulled down to make a cross, and on which Lord Jesus was crucified. And to this day, when people make the sign of the cross and say, touch wood, that cross points to God. So it's about identifying ourselves with that one single thing and focusing on it so intently, because Swami will grant that. Swami says, he would say that when you want a chance from Swami, practice. He would say, the way you want to give a letter to Bhagwan, or you want to give a kerchief to Bhagwan, practice. Swami will say, practice it. Swami would say, eating practice, writing practice, walking practice, talking practice, everything. He said, for something like a child, which now all of us sit and walk and take everything for granted. Do we realize it took us 9 months to 1 year to just grapple and stand? And then our parents were so happy when we took the first few steps. We didn't know how to walk, but we practiced with so much intensity. Today, it is our second nature. We don't have to think, oh, can I walk kind of a thing if I get up in the morning? So if we put that for something that is a physical in nature, if we have to do a metaphysical in nature, we need that kind of practice, that kind of intensity, that kind of focus, that kind of surrender, that kind of acceptance that everything is good for me, and keep staying with that again and again and again and again, so that it becomes our second nature, but actually that's our true nature, though we call it second nature. Because it is for us to stay in that realm of I am a spiritual being having a human experience. I am that mountain of laddu, and I'm not busy gathering my sugar cubes. So even as that focus goes on, because it's all about that intense focus, because once that surrender happens, the Lord takes over our life. Nothing we actually, Swami says, you take one step towards me, I will take the 100 steps towards you, right? He doesn't say you take 100 steps towards me, I will take one step towards you. So actually the Lord is waiting for, it's always that the mother is just waiting for the child to take the first step. She'll be waiting far away and just looking at the child. Is the child ready to take the first step? If it's about to fall, come running and hold on to the hand of the child and take the rest of the steps. Right? This is human thing. We say Swami's love is love of 1,000 mothers. We put, of course, a number. You cannot put a number of 1,000, 10,000, 1 million. It's beyond. It's unbounded. But then if we say that is the love, then won't Swami just run to us and hold our hands and take us across? It's for us to make that attempt. Swami, I believe in your word more than in my sight. And take that one step. And then that one step is actually beyond that circle of sugar to that mountain. That one step. Because once that ant realizes, it will never look back at that sugar cube anymore. It will never look back. It will just find it as tinsel and trash, nothing more of interest. And when this happens, how does the Lord respond? So let me go back to another incident in Dwapar Yuga. Duryodhana knows that Sahadeva is astrologer par excellence. So he wants to win the Kurukshetra battle. So he goes up to Sahadeva and he says, my dear brother, please give me the date and time I should start the war so that I will emerge victorious. So imagine you're going to the enemy camp and you're saying, give me a date and time so that I win over you. What does Sahadeva do? This professional dharma he is now called upon. So he sits down, he looks at the whole of the planetary positions, he looks at everything. He says, on this Amavasya day, this time you blow your conch, you will win the war. This Sahadeva tells Duryodhana. Duryodhana knows he's going to win the war. Everybody gets to know of this. And then Arjuna comes and Krishna comes and tells Sahadeva, Sahadeva, what have you done? This whole thing about dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge, all of this. Now Sahadeva has possibly created a glitch in that, right? So he says, what have you done, Sahadeva? You have given him the recipe for his success. Then what about you? What about your brothers? He says, Lord, we have you. The biggest problem for, I shouldn't say problem, or whatever we want to give that word, was the implicit obedience or whatever faith the Pandavas had in Lord Krishna. Right? Anything, we have you. Right? When Arjuna and Duryodhana went to Dwaraka, Duryodhana gets Narayani Sena, he is on top of the world. Arjuna just says, I pick you, my lord. You, whether you're unarmed, you hold the weapon, you don't hold the weapon. I just want you. The focus is always on Lord Krishna. Focus is always on Swami. So now Sahadeva says, Lord, we have you. And what touches the Lord? He says, when Swami says, my heart is as soft as butter, it just needs that warmth of your love and it will melt. When that complete faith and obedience to the Lord comes, right? It was his dharma, paradharma, that he had to maintain for giving advice to Duryodhana, which he maintained, and he offered everything at the lotus feet of Krishna. Then it became Lord Krishna's responsibility to take care of the rest. And what does Lord Krishna do? Straight from the camp, he goes to the river and he starts doing tarpanam on that day. It is no Amavasya day. And then the sun is confused, the moon is confused, everybody is confused. How come Lord Krishna is coming and doing tarpanam? So they land up in front of him and say, Lord, today is not Amavasya. Amavasya is yet to come. Please don't. Then Lord Krishna asks, oh, why is it not Amavasya? He says, what is the reason behind Amavasya? And he says they are because of a certain arrangement in planetary positions and so on. When the sun and the moon are in alignment, only then it will come as Amavasya. He says, the sun and the moon are right now, you're in front of me. You're in alignment. So I'm doing Tarpanam. And so that day came to be known as Bodhayana Amavasya. It got specially created because Lord Krishna did what he did, and he asked Yudhishthira to blow the conch that day to ensure that success became of that of Pandavas. So what the Lord does, he creates a recipe for success just because we have implicit faith in him. No longer is what is written on stone is written in stone. The Lord can come and just create a new stone and make writing come on that. He just, because of that complete faith, love, whatever we call that focus, whatever happens is good for me and do good to others, then the onus comes on to Swami to take care of the rest. So even as we see, this is time and again, we have seen this, how Lord Krishna, he became like a textile mill for Draupadi. Or in certain instances, he carried the sandals of Draupadi, because when Bhishma takes the vow that he will kill one of the Pandavas by the next day, by sunset next day, there's panic in the camp, and Lord Krishna sends Draupadi to just go and fall at the feet of Bhishma Pitama, and so that without him seeing her, he blesses her Sumangalivati Bhava, Saubhagyavati Bhava. And once that blessing comes, the purpose of what his vow, everything gets melted away. And then Bhishma realizes that this is definitely not Draupadi's doing. There is somebody behind it, which must be Lord Krishna. And then he calls out to Lord Krishna. And when Lord Krishna enters the camp, he's carrying a bundle. And then Bhishma asks him, what, Lord, what are you carrying? And then when the Lord opens that bundle, the sandals of Draupadi comes away. Why? Because Lord Krishna says, if Draupadi, you wear the sandals and go, Bhishma will know who that person is coming into. And then he may change the blessing that he has to give. So what the Lord went down to carrying the sandals of the devotee. Why? Because of that complete faith, focus, surrender, all of that, and staying tuned. So time and again, the Lord has shown that aspect of what, when we take that one step, the remaining 100 or 1,000 or countless steps that he takes towards us, just to ensure that we have that joy of being always in communion with him and we stay focused on him. That is what we need to essence in our life. And even as we go, the second part of the thing, whatever happens is good for me, we also essence that part that, Swami said, this too shall pass, in the sense of our difficulties, our trials, our tribulations, or even our elation, all of that. We know in the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Sukha Dukhe Same Kritva Labho Jaya Jaya. So we know that part. And how do we, there's in fact, a beautiful incident relating to this, which one of the convocation day drama. So usually during those days, or even now, we have the convocation happen. That's in the morning or in the evening, and then after that there is a convocation drama on the same day. And Swami is the director, and all in all for that drama, he'll come for umpteen number of rehearsals of those practices, and he would guide every actor the way they should say a dialogue, or in terms of the songs. In fact, I remember I had played the role of Tyagaraja in one of those dramas, and because the chief guest for that function for that year was the Honorable Vice President of India, Bairam Singh Shekhawat ji. He was a Hindi person. So Swami was so very, when Swami plays, the beautiful part about Bhagwan is whatever role he dawns upon, he plays it to perfection. And as his children, if we can do the same, nothing like it. So when Swami was hosting that whole function, Swami wanted that the chief guest who comes there, since he's a Hindi person, he would appreciate the nuances and meanings of Tyagaraja's songs if it were more in Hindi. So initially, what Tyagaraja, or in that role I had to sing as Nidhi Chala Sukama, it got translated into Hindi as Rajman Dhan Tujko Lubhaye Kya, Ram Ki Sannidhi Ya Rajman Dhan. So it became like the same. So it got the journey of that. So what happened? Initially, we kept Nidhi Chala Sukama. So I was trying to do the voiceover for that. Then Swami came. Swami, he wasn't so. He felt that this needs to be worked upon. So we came up with another version of the song, but it didn't match the translation. Then final came this version. So in fact, I remember for many of the things, Swami's car was just rolling into the practice sessions, and we would be having the song ready with the voiceover practiced, and then we would just run to the stage and Swami would come and see the performance. And finally, he was very, very happy that the literal verbatim translation happened, and it caught the essence of what Tyagaraja's songs were. And but why I came to this part is this is another convocation drama. And this had the story of the Pandavas as part of it. And in that is a very important message that Lord Krishna gives the Pandavas. He tells them that when you're in the most difficult part of your journey in life, he gives Yudhishthira a leaf. He says, open this and read this message when you're in the most important phase of your life and you need this important message to carry you through. So the beautiful part is, I'll come to this message, what was in the leaf. So anyway, all of us are very keen about the message part. And so the level of intricacy that Swami goes down to, Swami said, okay, now Lord Krishna has to write this on the leaf and give it to Yudhishthira. So what will he write with this? Swami, he will use his peacock feather, and then during the drama, how do you pluck out the peacock feather, and then how do you place it back, and all of that. So all of those small nitty-gritties came into the thing. Swami said, no, na abhiprayam. Every time Swami says, in my opinion, he doesn't impose anything, right? So Swami instantly created like a stylus, a small stylus that Lord Krishna, the actor, could use, and then gently slide it back into place. So in terms of the elegance of the way it is done, and even for the so for Swami, even though it's whether it's acting on the stage or off the stage, he gives equal importance, right? And whatever we do, every aspect of it, every tiny bit of it needs to be done with that sense of focus, that sense of surrender, that sense of purpose. Swami could have just said, "Oh, use this," and then keep it on the table there, right? But he says that now Lord Krishna is meeting with the Pandavas, the setting is different. So the kind of situation in which this whole event unfolds has to be thought of. And that's the way Swami beautifully conveyed that part of how things need to be done. Now, coming to the message. So the Pandavas are going to the most difficult phase. They have gone into the forest after this game of dice. They are in a very low point in their life. And at that point in time, and on one day when Yudhishthira feels that they are really on a low, they open the leaf. He opens the leaf. And what he sees on that leaf, this too shall pass. This is the message he sees on that leaf. And instantly the Pandavas know that this too shall pass. This also is a fleeting moment of what we say. They went into the forest, all of their trials and tribulations. We know the Pandavas were the epitome of virtue, but yet they went through the most difficult things. You take Lord Rama, he himself had to go to the forest, but whether it was Rama going to the forest or Krishna having to face battle on battle. In fact, he was called Randchod because he would many times abandon the battle and run away halfway through. Imagine we say, "Oh, Lord Krishna running away from battle." How would that? But all of that, it was taken with the same sense of equanimity. Whether it was a high or a low, this too shall pass. I'm not saying that today I can embrace that and say, "Oh, this too shall pass." And no, but I can make an attempt. I can try to drop that one sugar granule that I'm holding on to and say, "Swami, instead of holding on to this, I hold on to your feet." And I remember that only that will stay. Everything else, this too shall pass. And if I hold on to that with all purity of purpose, with all focus, with all surrender, then everything else will pass and Swami stays strongly enshrined within us. We have that focus. We have that sense of purpose. We are a spiritual being having a human experience. So even as we think through on all of these aspects, right? This too shall pass. Swami says that when we put a nail on a wall, we hammer in the nail, then we shake it a little. We want to be sure that the nail is strong, and then we mount the object, whether it's a photograph of Bhagwan or whatever we want to place. We first have to shake that nail. So it's shaking the nail is the test of Bhagwan. He will really see how much of course, we can pray to Bhagwan that Swami says, "Test is my taste." So, but we can hold on to Swami and say, "Swami," instead of saying, "Swami, don't give me a test," we say, "Swami, Bhagwan, if you decide to give us whatever you give as your prasadam, that we should accept as your prasadam." And when we are in that state of mind, whatever test that you're putting across, you please ensure that you take us across. It's not that we are saying that don't give me a test, but We hold on to his feet firmly. Swami, you are in me, with me, above me, below me, around me. You will take me across through whatever it is, because you have the best interests in mind for me. And why I say this is because of another incident. Because we have said how we need to give that value. Whatever we have a value as a Sai devotee is because of the Sai factor in it. And even as the Lord sees that surrender from us, he will want to test us to what level of that surrender it is. How focused are we in keeping the one before us, so that whatever zeros we put after that one, the focus and the value is always on the one. The zero is immaterial. It's always the one and one and one alone that matters. There was this boy, student of Swami, and Swami had given him an instruction that when you go home, it was a vacation time during that time when the students could go home, spend time, and then come back to the university. Happened a couple of decades ago. So this Swami had told this student that when you go home, don't take any money from parents. Swami will take care of everything for you. Yeah. So this was a couple of days before he left for home. And then again on the day he was leaving, again Swami instructed, Swami will take care of everything. Don't take money from parents. So he went home. He was there and spent time with parents. And when he had to come back, his father said, I will book your train ticket. And he said, no, father, you please don't book. Swami said he will take care of the thing, because he didn't want his father to book the ticket, spend money, and or even give him some money. And the father was taken a little aback. He said, you're my son. I have to take care of your needs. And he said, take this amount. And then when he spoke a little sternly, the boy still said no. And but the father insisted. And finally he had to take, because his father told him repeatedly. He took this amount. He came back to Puttaparthi, and when he landed in Puttaparthi, Swami stopped speaking to this boy. So now he continued whatever his prayers for Swami and all the other things he continued. But then a few days passed, and since he very clearly told his parents after that, do not send me money, and I should not be taking money from you at this point for whatever it is, his parents felt that they should respect whatever their son is saying. So they stopped from their end. And here, Swami would give that pocket money for this boy earlier to take care of whatever needs were there. And now Swami, because apparently he stopped talking, Swami didn't give that pocket money. Slowly, days passed into weeks, weeks passed into months, and the little money that he had with him, that savings, all of that is gone. So now he has to get food from the canteen. We pay that nominal, very, very minimal amount to get the tokens or coupons. That slowly, he didn't have the money. So he started cutting from 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day, 2 meals a day to 1 meal a day. He's sitting in Mandir, Swami comes and sees him, everything, but Swami is not telling anything. Then beyond 1 meal a day, that point, there would be leftovers. So he would take the leftovers in the canteen and have that. And when one of the in charges in canteen happened to see that, they wanted to help the boy and ask if he needed help. But since he got noticed with that, he stopped taking that also. It moved to living literally on water. And his prayers for, or his focus on Swami still remains the same. And then one day when he was seated with that, no complaints to anybody, nobody knows anything other than him and Swami, nobody else knows what is happening. And on one of such days when he's really hungry, he hasn't had anything, suddenly he gets called into the interview room, into Swami's dining area. And Swami asks him to serve the food on Swami's plate. Swami partakes of it. And then Swami asks him to sit there and eat from Bhagwan's plate as prasadam. And then even as the boy is eating, Swami recounts all that has happened and says how this boy stuck on to Swami's word till the end. And because of that, from today, he will have Swami's food as prasadam every day. So when the nail is put on the wall and gets a shake, who is shaking it? It's Swami shaking it. It's Swami who, that means he's holding on strongly to the nail and shaking it. He's not letting go of the nail and shaking. So he's only holding on to us. So in the most difficult parts of our life, if you're getting a shake, the firm grip of Bhagwan is there. And why he's doing that? So that when next the photo of Swami comes onto that nail, it is only strongly enshrined. It's not a fleeting existence on the wall, but a firmly established in the heart of every individual. So if we can hold on to Bhagwan with that intensity of whatever happens is good for me, any trials, any tribulations, anything, ups and downs that come in life, this too shall pass. And Swami is always with me, in me, below me, above me, around me. If that we hold on to strongly and stay focused, then we have truly made that flip, that conscious feeling that, yes, Lord, I believe firmly in your word than in my sight. I am the Divyatma Swarupulara that you call me. I am the Prema Swarupulara that you call me. I am, or I have gone beyond the sugar cubes and sensed that mountain of laddus that you are and become one with it. Because Swami says, Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. When we break that, Swami would say, like from a Mysore Pak, you break away a part of that Mysore Pak. It's not that the Mysore Pak has become smaller in size. It is same in sweetness of the bigger cube and that smaller cube. That is also Purnam. This also is Purnam and makes our life Paripurnam. It's about that surrender, that focus, and that love for Bhagwan. So, because what I've seen is, as I've gone through my physical stay with Swami, right from my primary school days all the way up to my PhD, and then subsequently as a faculty, when I was in the primary school, I would look over that wall of the primary school and I would see the higher secondary school and institute students on the other side, and I would say, oh, when will I go to that side of the fence and enjoy all this freedom and that the higher secondary school students or the institute students are having. Then one day I did get over that fence. I was on the other side. But then when I was in the institute student, I felt, oh, look at these research scholars, these PhD students, and they have more freedom. I want to have more freedom as well. I got to be a PhD student. I say, oh, but actually the faculty are the ones who enjoy all of that freedom and proximity with Bhagwan and all of this. So I got to become a faculty. And then I remember I was giving a talk in the institute, and then I say that many of these days when I cycle down in Patti, you have that slope with the arch there, and cycling down, I look at the primary school as I'm cycling down, and I say, I wish I was there. So it's like circle, right? So actually, many times when we are at that point in life, it's about staying in that moment and enjoying it to the fullest extent, because most of the time I am planning for the next moment and I then lose the joyous existence of that moment. When I'm in this satsang, and if I can just enjoy every moment of this satsang and feel Swami's presence here, Swami smiling and then listening, it's like the setting is again the Kulwant Hall. Swami is sitting on the chair and he's putting his finger on his chin, and then he's just looking at what the speaker is talking. That kind of, if I stay in that moment, in that feeling, then I can, every moment after moment, every activity after activity, I continue to stay in that feeling. Then every activity becomes an offering to Swami, because I'm holding on to Swami and nothing else matters. The focus is completely on Bhagwan. And believe it or not, brothers and sisters, I can tell the Swami catches every thought, every thought. I have, as an example, I will tell you, this was during the summer course valedictory function in my third year undergraduate. And it was happening in Brindavan, and on stage that day, all of us had written the exams the previous day. The results were announced. Two of the boys got the first rank, and as their names were called and they went up to the stage, Swami created rings for them. And as Swami created rings for them, a fleeting thought came in my mind. If only I would have got the first rank or first prize here, I would have got the ring. This was the thought that just went in my mind for a flicker of a second. Whole function got over. Swami, instead of going, usually he retires from the back of the stage to try. That day he came down the stage. He started coming down the stage, and everyone started getting very agile when Swami was coming that way. And from far he looked in my direction and he told, I gave that boy a ring. He looked in my direction and he told, so I thought Swami is telling in general, but then as Swami is coming, I see his gaze on me. And he said, I gave that boy a ring. I didn't know now what to say. So I thought best thing, tell Swami's words back at him. I said, Swami, chala santosham, Swami. I am telling Swami, Swami very happy. Then Swami walks a bit more, and then he came and he said, how many marks did you get? So now, usually for that summer course exam, only the people who get the first thing, we know that they have done really well. The rest of the thing, there's nothing like marks given at them. Everybody passes because everybody has paid attention to every word of what Swami has said, and then the questions are asked based on that. So I didn't know the marks, so I just kept silent. Then Swami said, you would have got 95, 98. So many boys got 95 and 98. Should I give all of them rings? And he just walked away. And in that split second, I knew that I had got my answer to what I thought about. Oh, if only I would have got the first prize, I would have got the ring. That ring thing was ringing in my mind. And Swami had caught that, and he came and told me, see, I did register that, and I'm giving you an explanation for that as well. And then he walks away. So what I'm trying to tell here at the end of the day is every thought that goes here between our 2 years, the ping pong that happens, he is the witness. He's watching that every thought. If only that ping pong we stop and we start focusing on that person who is within us, then the ping pong will automatically stop, because it becomes razor sharp focus, and everything in life will then will fall into place, will fall into complete acceptance, will become what I have been telling, a joyous sojourn and so on. It'll be just blissful. And it is that effort that we have to put in continuously, of reminding ourselves of who we are, what is the purpose we are here for, and hold on to Swami. I now request again all of you to close your eyes. And again, we are seated in our shrine. Swami is once again seated on the chair. He's beautifully smiling at all of us. He bends down again and he pats on our cheek. And he says, Bangaru, whatever happens is good for you. And we continue to hold on to his feet. And we are able to essence it for ourselves and say, yes, Swami, whatever happens is good for me, is good for me, is good for me. And Swami is continuing to smile at us. And then he says, remember, all of these, everything is passing clouds. This too shall pass. We say, yes, Bhagwan, everything else shall pass. You are the permanent person. You are that beautiful that personification of love whom we have in our lives, and we hold on to his feet strongly. And then Swami looks once again into our eyes and says, I am in you, with you, above you, below you, around you. And then we say, yes, Bhagwan, you are in me, with me, above me, below me, around me. Holding on strongly to your feet, Bhagwan. Please bless me. Please bless each and every one of us, that we always have you as the focus of our lives. And as we live in that moment with Swami smiling at us and we smiling back at Swami, and we hold on to his feet, Swami places his hand on our head and blesses us. And we are in that joyous union with Swami. And we retain that feeling within us. Swami is taking care of us every moment. and we stay in that existence always. With that, I request all of you to again open your eyes, and I thank each and every one here who has spent the last close to an hour and a half on this, thinking about Bhagwan and being with him. If you have any questions, anything to ask at this point, please feel free to do so. And whatever I have shared, if there is any limitations in what I've said, please accept my apologies. But if there is anything that's appealed to you, it's directly Swami who has intended that part of the message to reach each one of us here. So let us experience that mountain of Laddu that Swami is, and make that attempt to go beyond that sugar cubes. Thank you, Saira.
Sai Ram, absolutely in bliss. I think you took us to Hridaya Sai, you know, from the clutter that goes between the two ears. All you need is to dive in and hold on to his feet. Absolutely divine. Um, we do have time. If anyone has any questions, please do ask. I think, like a tutor going ahead with a lecture that has to go with the clear direction of what is the um, what is the aim, what is the conclusion. The connectivity in today's talk is so beautiful. Very simple message. I think the laddu is the icing in the cake. Literally, one will never forget that, because most of us end up being those ants, happy with the sugar that's on our path and thinking we have reached our destination without really seeing what's right behind that. Absolutely profound. I don't have any words to describe how I feel right now, but if any of you have any specific questions, please go ahead. You can, it's a small group, you can unmute yourself or you can type your questions and I shall read them out. Sai Ram, I'm going to give ourselves a couple of minutes if anyone has got any questions. I'm going to ask one question maybe to start off. I guess when nothing wrong is going on, when there's no storm, right, you can always silence that clutter between the two ears and hold on, right? But what would you say will be the simplest path to, we all know that holding on to his feet, this too will pass, everything is there. But then when you are agitated, that is where you lose your sense of rational or calmness. Or all of us as devotees would have gone through those moments where we do say we surrender to you, Swami, we do say we believe that you are the karta and we are just instruments and so on. But when real challenges come, what is the first step that you will do to silence the clutter between the two ears, to realize that you got to hold on? I mean, imagine you are trying to hold on to a safety net, or somebody has given you a flotation device to hold on to, but just for you to overcome that fear and hold on, what will be thoughts that you might have to share on handling that moment of panic, to why me, to when will this pass, before realizing that this too shall pass? What will be that transition handling? Many of us face that in our day-to-day existence. Is there anything that you would like to add on that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And when I say this, this is something that even I'm working on. It's not that a recipe that I have, but it's helping me. It's definitely helping me, and I should do it more intensely to draw value out of this. And what I've seen is usually when a problem happens, initially the feeling is, oh, this problem has happened. So the thing becomes, what next, kind of a thing. I felt that if that sentence, oh, this problem has happened, if I can add Swami either at the beginning or end of the sentence, or the sequence of sentences that follow in my mind after that, the perspective changes. Swami, this has happened. I'm not having a just this has happened. Swami, this has happened. How do I go about this, Swami? So either at the start of the sentence or at the end of the sentence, to whatever discussion we are having, we can have the same discussion, but we can either add Swami as a prefix or suffix. So then it becomes that even as I'm getting stressed out about that, I'm engaging in a communication with Swami at that point. And it doesn't become just like I have to, because that whole pressure, like the example that Swami gives is when we get onto a train with all the baggage, I can keep the baggage on the train and I can have a comfortable journey. But what I do is I keep the baggage on me, though I am seated on the train and I'm carrying it. I'm not allowing the train to do the part. Swami is the train. If I can take that baggage and just keep it down, I have to just let go and say, Swami, I am giving you this, right? And so it's like the train that will still carry the baggage. So for me, that part, what you rightly said, is the flutter of thoughts, or the whether it's reaction or response, whatever we want to call it, is so fast that I still hold on to that, my baggage. I don't want to give the baggage. So it is still cumbersome, heavy. So by doing that, Swami, I have this problem. What can I do, Swami? Will doing this help me, Swami? So making the prefix and suffix makes this as a dialogue with Swami. And one day, it's practice. And one day, the monologue will become a dialogue. Initially, it starts as I'm only telling Swami, oh Swami, but then the mother is waiting there to run the 1,000 or countless steps. So that part I've seen, but I am still trying. I'm not saying I have mastered this, but just trying to engage that prefix or suffix of Bhagwan. Yeah, Swami will respond.
It's a beautiful analogy. I think just the fact that bringing in Swami calms you down, and it forces an internal conversation that you are having in a time of conflict where you're not going to resolve any answer that comes, and you want to take control of the situation, and the situation is out of control. The only way is to surrender. And I think this analogy of a prefix suffix is really beautiful, where your conversation becomes a dialogue over practice, where there is Swami in that problem. Beautiful, absolutely profound, and a thought that I will definitely start practicing today when I have that happening, because all of us face it in different moments of our existence. And every time you think that you have progressed well in the Sai path, and then it comes down and you realize, oh gosh, okay, how much back, snakes and ladders kind of scenario. So it's beautiful, something that all of us should apply. And if anyone else has got any questions, please go ahead.
Sai Satish, on a similar subject, thoughts are always there, situations are always there for us, right? And we are slowly learning to say, Swami, please give us the right thoughts. Okay. And then we execute something, and then we face a result. Okay. it's not always that the results are what we would have expected it to be. So the question always comes is, was that thought mine, or was that the thought that Swami gave us? Right? This especially happening because we are teaching our children to do this now. Okay. And at that age, when the response is not what they would have wanted it to be. So you told me that Swami will take care, but you see, it didn't happen. So we are unable to answer these questions, and not theirs, but at times I think in our lives, we have also not learned. So how should you think this could be addressed?
Yes, Sairam, thank you for that question. And this again is something that I'm still work in progress. So usually to give a philosophical, and then I'll get into the practical aspect. We are so used that we write the exam, we get the result. We do any activity, we expect the result to come instantaneously. We are so like, I pay for an item, I get the item. And these days it is close to real time. So it is like, I ask Swami this, I have to get it immediately. We extend the equation to those as well. But Swami says both patience and perseverance. Shirdi Baba used to say both Shraddha and Saburi, right? So how many times have I tried sincerely and continue to try despite the, I understand completely, I'm in sync with you. How do we tell the younger generation? Because for they are used to anything and everything. Even I am used to, I pay for this, I get this done. It is instant gratification that I'm used to. So if there is delayed gratification, I feel that this is not working for me. I am not getting what I want instantly, but it is like this in the worldly way of things. Every day we need try a different thing. If you take this route to work, take a different route. Don't try the same thing. But in spirituality, it is do the same thing again and again and again and again. There is no like great sages or people like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's disciples. There was one person by name, if I can give an example, Lattu Maharaj. They have experienced the real high of life, but till the end of his life, he would request his disciples, even when he's not able to get up, to make him sit and do sadhana. Then his disciples would tell him that, Maharaj, you have already achieved and attained everything. Why do you have to do sadhana now? You have already got everything. But he would say, no, there is no substitute to setting a schedule and doing sadhana. So am I ready as an individual that I've put that effort? Because but it doesn't mean that there is no instant gratification. What happens is, in worldly path, if I have an apple 10 feet away, I have to walk 10 feet to get to the apple, only then I can savor it. But in spirituality, when I take one step towards apple, I can start feeling the taste of the apple. So it's not that our younger generation or not, if they have tried sincerely, they would have not got nothing out of it. They would have got something out of it. But since the whole apple didn't come, I am focusing on, I didn't get the whole apple, but I got the bite of the apple. That we should not say we have not got at all, because they would have savored that. So I think many times they observe us. And I also tell many things, but I know that my own family sees me from morning, from dawn to dusk. Am I living by the principles? I pass sometimes, I fail many times. So when children see, it's like Swami says, Cheppinatlu Chestara. He made the drama, right? Do you do as you say? They see us and they say, are my parents living this to the whatever extent possible. Whatever, are they making their sacrifices? Are they sticking? If they see that happen day after day after day, one time in their life they will 100% get it, because Swami in their heart is not going to just let go of them, right? He's going, once Swami says, once you hold on to me, I will never let go. He has made that promise. So that attempt from there, if it is sincere, they may not see it today, but they will see it someday. Till then, they will keep seeing us. So that is always there. So I don't know if I've answered your question completely, but the many times I see when that question comes, I see that, yes, I have myself asked that question when I was small. All of us have asked that question. So how much do we hold on to our own principles? How much do we hold on to that Swami? And by seeing that, they will get it. And one day, if their own pursuit is sincere, they have to get it. Bhagwan will give. He's waiting to give. Swami says, I am waiting to give. You have to knock on the door. The door will open. We have to knock. So I am very confident they will get it one day. But till then, the intensity of that has to be there. And we have to keep doing our bit also, because they will get, it's more about inspiration, drawing from one another and going forward. If it helps in any way, I don't know if I can say if I've answered. This is something that we always face. How do we have the younger generation go? But then I also, when I ask that question, I ask myself also, how much am I doing?
Yeah.
So
It's true. It's true. It's a journey we are going through.
Wonderful. I think we've how do I say, the best of those messages always come in its own way, and every week the message is what I call tailor-made, because he's the master tailor, who knows what exactly fits into ourselves, where we are in our sadhana, and like his clans, where he might be looking in one direction but he's actually seeing so many of us. These messages dive into each one of us in its own way, and all I can pray to Swami is that we don't just sit through satsangs, but we draw inspiration and learnings from it, and we try to make that one little thing. So today I will never forget this satsang talking about the laddu and the sugar, and this too shall pass. A beautiful way of getting us all into the satsang, where we get the hero of the story, which is Swami, coming and holding on to him. Our attention is there. Lots to learn on how to also bring in Swami, without just talking about it. And you've actually not really touched much on your experiences, but you've drawn in from information that all of us could dive in. I mean, the Vahinis are something that all of us should put our efforts to read. There's so much. You talked about the Vahini series that you have happening there. We hope we too will have, and I pray to Swami that you will be there to talk to the younger gen someday of Singapore. There are lots of kids, and I can tell you definitely, as you rightly said, we only sow the seeds. We don't see it blossom, but the inert blossoming starts when they come into the fold. And nobody comes into the fold without his sankalpa. And that is my conviction of anyone who goes through Bal Vikas, or who attends a bhajan, or who is born into a family of Sai. I think that's the biggest blessing for them, to be there. And all we have to do is wait for the moment to see them blossom. That is my conviction. And I hope to have you back on one more satsang someday, real soon, where we can have more getting inspired in that process through what Swami has to say through you. Until then, my prayers for all to remain safe in contemplation, in his service, doing what you do every moment, contemplating him. Sai Ram. Samastalokaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Om शांति शांति शांति। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। साई राम, स्टे सेफ।
Right.
Sai Ram.